when I kind of really get into the nitty-gritty of what I've had to kind of endure. A lot of my friends, people that are close to me, they just can't help but wonder, help but ask, like, God damn, bitch, you ain't seen none of this? And in all honesty, the truth is a resounding yes, I did see this shit, but I didn't know what it was, y'all, because I really had no fucking clue how big of a deal most of the shit was. I saw all the things that I was having to deal with just as kind of regular shit that you deal with as an imperfect person in relationship with another imperfect person. I just saw it as regular shit, you know? I felt like he had flaws that I had to deal with the same way that I had flaws that he had to deal with, you know? I didn't realize that specific flaws, you know, put them together, it kind of combined to form this Voltron of evil. The ways that these traits showed up in my marriage, it was so easy for me to rationalize them out of the picture, you know, rationalize them into regular shit that was normal in a marriage or a relationship. I'm in a spectacular mood, which means I'm with the shits. So I'm going to have to be very careful that I don't put my foot in my mouth, at least not all the way. I really do hope that your lives are not nearly as frustrating as mine is currently. But if there's one thing I know about life is that the fuckery spares no one. So if you find yourself in a shitty season like myself, I do sincerely pray that you're able to find the positive perspective, because I think that that's really the cheat code in life. You know, we can't wait for the shittiness to subside to find or experience joy. You know, I have to accept that my ex is a narcissist, and the fact that we share a child together means that I'm going to probably have to deal with his insanity forever, or at least on this side of eternity. And I gotta find the silver lining. And for me, I think that is the fact that we're not married anymore. That's good. I think that I have a reckless amount of strength and mental fortitude that not everybody is blessed with. So I'm grateful for that. And you know, I'm the type, I wouldn't call myself an overachiever, you know, but when my back is against the wall, I'm motivated like you wouldn't believe. And so, in the midst of all this turmoil, I'm really able to see very clearly the redemptive power of God. And I know that that is a super churchy thing to say, but I really do mean it. I'm able right now to kind of have a more authentic understanding of how God can take something that is altogether tragic and use it in a way to inspire and connect and heal and ultimately elevate you in a way that you otherwise wouldn't without this kind of tragic occurrence in your life happening. And so, yeah, it truly is refinement through the fire that produces diamonds, y'all. And even though I'm currently in the furnace in my life, and it is hot as fuck, it is hot as fuck in this furnace, I'm able to see what it's producing in me. And even more so, I'm able to see the dusty ass rock that my life was prior to this divorce, you know. And that's kind of what I wanted to kind of touch on today, is just how dusty my past was, that I actually mistook for a good marriage. You know, I had no idea just how dusty, did I say dusty? I meant dusty shit really was. So, like a lot of my friends, people that are close to me, family members even, when I kind of really get into the nitty gritty of what I've had to kind of endure and who I'm finding out my ex is, they just can't help but wonder, help but ask, like, God damn, bitch, you ain't seen none of this? Not a smidge? Um, and in all honesty, the truth is a resounding yes, I did see this shit, but I didn't know what it was, y'all. Like, I really didn't, like, I saw all the things that I was having to deal with my ex just as kind of regular shit that you deal with as an imperfect person in relationship with another imperfect person. I just saw it as regular shit. I felt like he had flaws that I had to deal with the same way that I had flaws that he had to deal with. I didn't realize that his specific flaws, put them together, it kind of combined to form this Voltron of evil. I did not know that. And so, so today what I wanted to do is I wanted to get into the DSM-5 of clinical traits that characterize narcissistic personality disorder. And more so, I wanted to talk about the ways that these traits showed up in my marriage and give you examples of what it looked like and why it was so easy for me to rationalize them out of the picture, rationalize them into regular shit that was normal in a marriage or a relationship. Because I really had no fucking clue how big of a deal most of the shit was. So anyways, before I get into that, hey guys, welcome back to Lex Talk. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Alexis, and the purpose of this channel is to have real conversations about life, love, and relationships, because I believe that there is healing at the intersection of our testimonies. And basically, because, let me put this down because I can't, because most of us don't like to air all of our dirty laundry on Front Street, which is completely understandable. Many of us only see each other's highlight reel. And I don't blame anybody for showing anything outside of their highlight reel. But as a result, many of us go through life with this distorted view of what reality is. And we're left wondering, shit, is something wrong with me? Am I the only one that feels this way about my child, about my husband, about my wife, about my parents? And that's not the truth. That's all that we're fed is the things that go well. And so, I feel like I am here to, do the hard work of sharing too much, for the sake of making it known that life is hard for us all, and hoping that somebody out there is able to identify with my trials and tribulations and feel a little bit less alone in this journey called life. All right, so the DSM-5, that stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and it comes from the American Psychiatric Association, and it basically sets forth criteria that a person must possess in order to be clinically diagnosed with a specific disorder. And so, disclaimer, I don't have nobody's degree in psychology, psychiatry, medicine, therapy, counseling, or otherwise. Y'all, I am a licensed architect. That's it. So if you find yourself identifying with any of the things that I'm going to discuss, either for yourself or somebody that you might be dealing with, go ahead and take that to a professional, which I am not. Hear me, I am not. Today, I just want to speak on what my experience has been and hopefully kind of shed light on some of the misconceptions about narcissistic personality disorder, because I myself am discovering a lot of things that, had I known, I probably could have saved myself a lot of heartache and trouble. Yeah. And so for me, although I'm not able to physically force my ex to go and see somebody, recognizing these traits, these signs of narcissistic personality disorder is helpful for me, for one, to not get tripped up expecting that somebody is operating a certain way based on the way that what it means to me. Being able to recognize that no, this person is acting like this because this is how they are wired. It helps me to know how to manage my relationship with someone. It also helps me not to internalize their actions from the perspective of a sane person. Like when I know that somebody's a little bit off, I can receive their actions with that level of offness. It doesn't cut the same way. So, anyways, in my Googles, because that's all the research that I've been doing. There are two things that I want to hit on before I get into the DSM-5 traits. The first one is a little narcissism ain't bad. In fact, most of us possess a little bit of narcissism because it's a spectrum, just like autism, just like a lot of things that people are characterized by, traits that they possess. There are varying degrees of narcissism. And so honestly, to be diagnosed as having narcissistic personality disorder, it has to be pretty extreme. Most people that we encounter that we think are just full of themselves are just said to have narcissistic traits. And so by themselves, much the same way that I saw my ex's traits separately, individually, by themselves, they're not bad. It is when that they are combined, that they work in conjunction with each other, that they begin to be used to manipulate, alienate people to uphold their like beliefs about themselves. So understanding that it's a spectrum. The second thing is, although every narcissist has kind of the same core traits, or they're wired in the same kind of way, there are different ways that it's expressed. And one of those ways, there's a whole like list of subsets of narcissism, but one of them is called covert narcissism, meaning undercover narcissism, y'all. And I think that's what I've been dealing with. And I want to talk about that because it shows up in a way that is a lot less easy to recognize as problematic. Let's get into it. All right. So for the DSM-5, for narcissistic personality disorder, there are 9 traits that are considered to be narcissistic. Of those 9, a person has to possess 5 of those traits in order to be diagnosed clinically as having narcissistic personality disorder. 3 of the 9 traits, I believe, are present in every narcissist. Now, anybody in the comments that knows more than me, feel free to drop some knowledge, because in my research, like I said, all I've been doing is my Googles, okay? But it seems as though these 3 main characteristics that I'm about to go into now are apparent in every narcissist, and then they have some combination of 2 others that launch them into having the disorder clinically. But okay, so to the 3. The first one of those 3 is called grandiosity, and that is basically somebody that has a really high level or high sense of self-importance. They think they're the shit. But honestly, this can look just like confidence. Regular old confidence, y'all. Especially because, although they are full of themselves, the narcissist is still very stable. They still seem like they have their shit together. They still seem very normal, just full of themselves. Now, one way that I believe I've kind of noticed a narcissist can be a little bit different in their confidence is when they're criticized, or when a flaw of theirs is kind of exposed. They tend to go a little bit off the deep end. They tend to react a bit over dramatically, Case in point, my ex, I remember there was a time where he had his friends over for the weekend or something like that. And he was feeling himself. He was the shit that weekend. I mean, he's often the shit, but he was really feeling himself as like the host with the most kind of thing. And so he was doing the most. So much so that his friends were even like, hey, maybe chill out just a little bit. You're kind of doing a lot right now. And by doing a lot, he was doing things that you would expect of a bachelor that didn't have his wife right there. Not like infidelity or anything, but just not very respectful of me in that situation. And so, me knowing my husband, I didn't make a big scene about it. Like, I know that he gets, a little overzealous sometimes when he's charged and everything and hype. And so, very, unsuspecting, like, I just asked him to, come and help me with something real quick. And I took that time to say, hey, babe, I know you're having a good time and all, but would you mind just pulling back a little bit? Because it is feeling a little kind of fucked up, And he flipped out. He flipped the fuck out. It was this very like self-deprecating rage. Like he was almost cussing himself out because of how could he get to this place? Like, why was he like this? Why can't he do things right? It was a lot, But by this point in our marriage, I had come to just see this as him being kind of dramatic. That was just who he was. But I didn't see it as anything more. Just, yeah, he's being extra. He's dramatic. It hit him. He felt a little ashamed because his friends had said this, and now his wife had kind of echoed this sentiment. And so kind of that feeling like everybody's looking at you like you stupid, and you just now realize it. So I just saw it as shame. I didn't think of it as anything more. But this was actually more expressive of his inability to accept criticism, inability to see himself as anything less than perfect. Because what a narcissist does is they live in this kind of fantastical delusion of their selves, like they see themselves almost like Trumanville, where there's this perfected, crafted image of who they are. And so in order to get through life, they need to constantly reinforce this fake image of themselves. And when people come and kind of break that down with criticism or judgment or flaws in them, they like spontaneously combust, All right, so that's the first one. The second one is let me read the actual, because it says it differently. It is the excessive need for admiration, referring to a constant desire for positive reinforcement by others. When I tell y'all, this shit right here was the thorn in my ass crack for the entirety of our marriage, y'all. Like, and anybody that knows me well, that has known me since I was with my ex, has probably heard me refer to him as this sensitive ass nigga. Now, I'm not proud of that, but it is my truth. And I had just come to believe that my ex needed a high level of words of affirmation because that was his love language. And he just happened to be a bit more sensitive than most men that I had encountered. I did not realize that these were just symptoms of his narcissism. I, in fact, began to internalize his, like, this pressure to meet his need for affirmation as my duty as his wife. And because it was his love language, I saw it as, this is just the way that he feels loved. And so who am I to deny him that? This is my calling to step up. God placed this man in my life as my husband, and it is now my role, my responsibility to steward this marriage well. And my ex definitely made sure to heighten this pressure that I felt by calling me out about it. He would literally tell me that, he felt that he was doing his utmost to meet my needs for quality time, for what else is my for acts of service, my love languages. And he felt that the effort was not reciprocated by me to meet his love language needs of words of affirmation. And when I tell you that shit did a number on me, because for one, I actually, I mean, I got issues, but I do care deeply for those that I actually love. And I felt so shitty not being able to love my husband in the way that he needed. And it made me feel as though, like, damn, am I even trying? I knew I was trying, but because it wasn't being received in a way that affirmed that, I was like, well, shit, maybe I'm not doing this marriage thing right at all, you know? Because I was able to say I saw his effort. Even though he wasn't able to fulfill all of my needs for, quality, like, I saw his effort, and I would affirm that in him. Like, thank you for setting this up. I see what you're trying to do there. Thank you. Whether or not it fulfilled me or not, I saw the effort. I didn't really get that. It was always not enough. I wasn't able to meet his needs because his needs were not meetable. But I didn't know that. And so I found myself just continually trying to get there, like walking on eggshells, trying so hard to create this safe space, or so I thought that's what I was trying to create, for him to feel like he was king of the fucking world. But honestly and truly, I never would have gotten there. And believe me, at the end of our marriage, he told me that I never did make it, y'all. Like, this nigga was an asshole. But anyways, so need for affirmation, excessive need for affirmation, constant need for everybody to validate them and affirm them is point number 2. Point number 3, low empathy. Let me read it and see if there's any other special words for it. Empathy refers to being able to take on the point of view of other people, to care about others' well-being. Empathy is considered the foundation for human compassion and morality. This nigga was cold-blooded. And this was, I would say, particularly difficult to recognize, because I don't think I took the signs as seriously as they were. They seem minimal, but when you step back and recognize, again, the bigger picture, you're like, oh, you was dead ass serious. You really didn't give a fuck about that person. One way that I think I can kind of make it clear how it showed up is when I was looking to leave a job that I had been in for a little while, and it was a good job. The people were very kind to me. It was a small job, or a small company, so I felt a level of closeness, like we really did like care for each other in a professional way. But it was time for me to go. I had outgrown like my cap there, and it was just time for me to chart a different path. And so I took his advice because I actually saw this display of lack of empathy as a strength in this scenario. And what I mean is, oftentimes as women, we lack confidence in the whole career pursuit. We always second guess our ability. I won't say everybody, but it's common for us as women to second guess our ability to do a job, our worthiness, and all the things, right? And so even in leaving a job, I felt this need to go above and beyond and show up, because I really felt bad about leaving them. I felt like I was deserting them. And, again, the relationships that I forged in the time that I was there were real. So I had a real space in my heart that felt bad about leaving this place open and needing this position open, and them needing to find someone to replace me and pick up all the things that I had going on, And so, granted, I was doing the most. I was like about to give a month notice, which is not necessary for any job, and at the end of the day, a job is a job, and they are going to replace you as quick as possible, but I still did know the things that the ends that I was leaving open, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to really button things up, just for the sake of being a decent person, right? So I mentioned this to him, and his response was more like, man, fuck them. They're fine. And it hit me because although I understood the sentiment of, you don't need to do all that, they will be okay, the energy of fuck them, they'll be fine, that was a bit much for me because, again, I actually did see them as human beings that were decent people. And although I didn't need to give them all of that, giving them none of that from that perspective didn't jive well with me. You know, it was more like, hey, there's no need to burn them on your way out, you know? Like, how about you just have at least give them the standard 2 weeks and maybe see how much can be accomplished to make sure that you transition things well. Maybe in those 2 weeks, you really do put forth an effort to make it as smooth as possible. But that energy that he had, that fuck them, they'll be all right, that was something that I saw him do in other relationships as well. Relationships that I fully expected him to treat with care, like people that he really did love, like family members and close friends. There'd be situations where he would still have that same attitude, like, fuck them, they'll be all right. And I'd be taken aback, like, I mean, you know, this ain't no random person, right? This not just any old body. But now, you know, of course, hindsight, I'm able to see that he didn't really distinguish between people that he cared about and people that he just met. It all had to do with what was required of him, what was relevant to his life, you know, in the way that he interacted with them. Whether it was something that he really loved and fucked with or a complete stranger, they could get the same energy if the event wasn't serving him. And so that was one way that I think it appeared in our marriage that I didn't really see as anything more than he just has boundaries, or, you know, maybe he just doesn't feel like doing it, but he doesn't really mean that he doesn't care for him. But right now, maybe he's just a little bit exhausted and can't really show up for them. I didn't see it as a choice to really just not fucking care about people. But that's exactly what it was. And then now in the divorce and, you know, subsequent divorce, the way that he has dealt with me, with our daughter in this, you know, previous situation is exactly what that is. You know, he hadn't turned the full force of his lack of empathy toward me, but now I'm able to see it in all of its glory, you know? Yay me, right? All right, so those are the three main characteristics or traits that you're going to see in a narcissist. And like I said, I believe those are present in everybody that is diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. If this is not true, please somebody let me know. Because I would venture to say that if you notice these specific three traits, grandiosity, excessive need for affirmation, and lack of empathy in anybody, including your damn self, I would say go ahead and keep one eye open, maybe both, but at least one eye, because you might be, if it's you might be the narcissist, or you might be dealing with a narcissist. And that doesn't mean that you need to write them off. But if you're not aware, and if you're not careful, you can easily fall into a pattern of manipulation that can be ultimately dangerous if you don't catch it. You know, if you're not able to be like, I see what's happening right there, before you get kind of caught up. So I would definitely say that. And another thing, like I mentioned earlier, is the idea of this covert narcissism. So recognizing that it may not be as forward-facing as you might expect. You know, again, not the Donald Trumps of the world, but covert narcissism, kind of like I spoke about with the need for words of affirmation, and my ex basically telling me that he was doing everything he could to meet my needs and didn't feel like I cared about him enough to do the same. That was like a backdoor way of shaming me into basically catering to him in a way that kind of reinforced his sense of self, you know? And that, boy, oh boy, did that really fucked me. It did a number on me because it played into a whole bunch of other stereotypes. I'm going to sit here for a little bit. It played into a whole bunch of stereotypes that I was already battling with. And because he knew me, he knew my insecurities, he knew the things that would trigger me into overcompensating. And this was one of them. So not only did it make me feel bad just in general as his wife for not being able to make him feel loved, but it tapped into this strong Black woman trauma that I have dealt with all my life and still do deal with to some degree and I want to kind of touch on this because I think it's a bigger conversation. This idea of strong Black women not being able to love and be loved is so fucking damaging, because for one, it's not true. Everybody has their own trauma, and it shows up in ways that are not typically becoming. But I believe it is the responsibility of every person in relationship to give grace. Now, that doesn't mean unlimited grace. I mean, it's supposed to be, but you got to protect yourself and know the limits of what you can handle before it starts to eat away at yourself. I believe every person in relationship is required to give a level of grace to recognize somebody else's trauma and have those conversations to try to get it under control so that you can have a healthy relationship going forward. Now, if that person is not willing or able to kind of address those things, then do what you got to do. But a lot of times our trauma is so deeply rooted that we don't even know that it's there or how it's affecting those that we love. So I don't think that the trauma of the strong Black woman is any more of an issue than the trauma of somebody that had a rough childhood or whatever the case may be. We all have trauma, just pick your poison kind of thing. But I think that it's often touted as this woman is unlovable. And because of that, like, I was raised, like, although my parents were both in my life, my mom was very much a single Black mom that had most of the responsibility of rearing us, my siblings and I. And so there are a lot of things that I learned from her just by way of being her daughter that would lend themselves to being the stereotypical strong Black woman that don't need no man. And I think it was probably like getting saved and beginning my Christian walk that first led me to challenge some of these characteristics that were present in me. And I don't think I made a like verbal declaration to change, but over time my heart softened and I saw myself going in a different direction. Not saying that I was no longer strong and independent or Black or a woman. Like, I'm still all those things, but I recognize that there's a time and a place for that strength to come out. A lot of times when we're strong, we don't realize how to turn it off. We don't know when to just relax and exist because we feel the pressure to always be that strength, always exude that strength in every situation, which is exhausting, by the way. Also, side note, sometimes we are not allowed to turn it off because life hasn't afforded us a safe space to let go and rest. But anyways, when we're able to, sometimes we still don't know. Turn that shit off. Chill out. It's okay. You can be safe. You can be vulnerable and all the things. So there was a time in my life where I started to go in a different direction and allow myself to not have such a hard exterior, shell, whatever you want to call it. And I'm intentional about allowing, let me see how to phrase this, because I sure don't want to make it seem like I am what I'm not. But at least in relationships, I try not to allow my natural personality to demean or chop down others. And I would say not just in romantic relationships. This also has to happen in my professional relationships and friendships. And it isn't just towards men. It's towards people in general. Like, I don't want to come off as I don't need anybody or nobody else can do well for me. Like, I just don't want that to be what I lead with. Now, if I must, I must. And don't get it twisted. I can and I will. But I'm not looking to lead with that. As a matter of fact, I'm hoping that I don't need to use that. I'm hoping that I don't have to pull that strength out of my back pocket at all. That would be lovely. And so in the course of my marriage, this was like an accelerated masterclass, because not only was I trying to chop off some of those previous ideologies, but I was now with a man that needed an extreme level of affirmation and validation. And it was like, bruh, night and day what I had been used to and what I was currently dealing with. It was a lot, and it was extremely difficult to, first of all, get to base, but to get to where he needed, it was crazy. And also another kind of okie doke was when we first got together, one of the things that attracted my ex to me was my strength, was my, I won't say independence, but my ability to handle shit and just be a force. But I wasn't like rude or reckless, but I had this thing about me, this big boss energy about me that I just naturally was raised with and exuded. And he would specifically say he didn't want somebody, I guess, from his to date someone from his culture, because he didn't want them to be, because of the ways that they were raised and conditioned to interact. He wanted somebody that had a little bit more, I guess, independence and disassociated themselves from that kind of ideology. It wasn't until about 3, maybe 4 years into our marriage that he and I came to the conclusion that although he absolutely valued the kind of non-traditional woman that I am, he still had this core tradition in him, more of a patriarchal kind of tradition that he couldn't shake. And he felt loved by that dynamic. And so I took it as, although it wasn't what I signed up for, this is the man that I married. Lord, this is the man that you gave to me as my husband. I guess it's my duty now to go ahead and step up in the way that I'm able to meet him where he is or was. And because of that kind of trauma that I had of not wanting to be seen as this strong Black woman that can't keep a man, I conformed as much as I was able to, and sometimes more than I was able to, which I felt completely nauseated by and had to walk that shit back. But I did what I could to meet him where he was. And hearing things like this in these types of scenarios made me feel even more pressure to rise up, as opposed to be like, nigga, what the fuck? Like, you're tripping. You are out of your mind right now. Instead of saying that, I said, you know what? I guess I have to do it. This is the man I married and I love him and I want him to feel loved by me. And so I definitely think that, and it's not just Black women that are strong, but I definitely know the stereotype is heavy within our demographic. But this kind of shaming of strong women into needing to be softer, this whole soft girl era, I get it. And I don't think that it's a bad thing, but I do think that maybe we should be careful about internalizing it blindly as though there's something wrong with our strength, it's a very careful line that we need to walk to make sure that we're not ashamed of our strength, but also not using it as a weapon against other people, or allowing it to shame us so much that it can be weaponized against us, which is what I feel my ex was doing. He was using that desire of mine to be seen as palatable against me. and saying, you know what? Here you go, you strong ass. That's why I don't like you. Essentially, that's what he was saying. So anyways, those are the main 3 characteristics. I am going to come back in another video to talk about the other 6 characteristics that are possibly present in a narcissist, because I want to be able to go into depth with them. And when I try to put it in one video, I got too much explanations, because literally I have an example in my marriage for every single trait. So it is what it is. But anyways, I really hope that was helpful to you guys, because there are a lot of people that are just walking around dealing with a narcissist and thinking that they're crazy, and you shouldn't. And some people that are walking around wondering why they ain't got no goddamn friends, and it's because you are the narcissist, sir, ma'am, whatever. So anyways, check me out for the next video to really expound on the rest of the characteristics, and then I'm gonna go into what do you do once you have realized that that's what you're dealing with. How do you go? Where do you go from there? So anyways, as always, if you listen to podcasts, check me out anywhere podcasts are found at Lex Talk. That's LEXTLK. And if you're on social media, please check me out at is_Alexis. That's ISS_Alexis. No E, no I, double S. And I can't wait to check you guys out in another video. All right. Thanks so much.